Admit it, at some point you wanted one. If you're any sort of car enthusiast, whether you're into classics, tuners, fast cars, Germans, Japanese, there is always a special place in your heart reserved for a W124. This image of driving one on a good mountainous road on a cold morning, sun gleaming on the star, this is the stuff that most automotive dreams are made of. You want to be doing this at some point in your life. But should you go out and get one? Welcome to the real world. Out here there is traffic, careless bikers, pesky autos, and a scarcity of parking. You just can't leave it parked on the side of the road. It gets too hot on a sunny day, and on a day like today, it pours from the skies. This is no place for an old car like this. You certainly can't use one as a daily, or can you? To find out, I've been living with this one for a couple of weeks now. This is an E220 from 1996. The amber indicators may be misleading, but you can tell it from the race suspension that it's an India spec car made by Telco. India was the last market to get this car. Around the same time, it went out of production internationally in 1995. The W124 chassis dates back to 1984, and it was way ahead of its time. It had catalytic converter, a covered underbody, and despite looking boxy, had an impressive coefficient of drag of 0.29. It had ABS, airbags. The international models even had traction control and automatic locking diffs. The year 1993 saw the biggest facelift to the W124, where it gained these plastic trim panels on the sides, the logo moved over to the bonnet, and these bonnet extensions showed up on either side of the grille. The engine range was totally revamped with a better 4 valves per cylinder design. And it was the same year they started calling it the E-Class. This particular car comes with fabric seats, although there were ones with leather too. There is dual zone air conditioning, a power antenna, electrically adjustable mirrors, power windows, height adjustable seat belts, etc. Other notable W124 touches include the ignition slot on the left of the steering column, this little sun visor over the mirror, the placement of this first aid kit, this little man on the rear power windows lock switch, and these overhead light warnings. This comes from a time when Mercedes was building cars that would outlast their owners. Everything works on this 25-year-old car. There are no squeaks or rattles to report, the doors still close with a solid thud, and it has aged gracefully both inside and out. If anything that's more impressive than its reliability and build, it's the level of engineering that has gone into this car. Now let me tell you about the wiper mechanism. It's one arm to cover the whole windshield, so it retracts in the center and extends all the way to reach out to the edges. Now the eccentric hub mechanism on this is very clever, that it covers nearly 86% of the whole windscreen area, an arrangement so good that it inspired the one on the modern day Koenigsegg. Now you have to use the original Mercedes wiper blade on this, because the 4-axis motion would destroy any of the cheaper ones that you put in. Then we get to the rear view mirrors, which are asymmetrical. The one on the right is longer and offers a wider field of view, while the one on the left is almost a square, being taller and shorter. Now this is brilliant because this one lets you see all the cars on the road, and that one lets you see all the girls on the sidewalk. The real reason is that it lets you go into the narrow country roads without worrying about it sticking out too much. And that time, Mercedes didn't mind spending, so it was the exact opposite on a left-hand drive car. And there is more. The bonnet hinge has these little tabs that you pull, so it can be raised to the service position, which lets you reach out to things that are at the back of the engine bay. It has always fascinated me that Mercedes has put so much thought into even the tiniest of things. Say you want to keep the boot open, but you don't want to drain the battery. This little light switch can be pulled, so the light remains off. That reminds me, every 10 minutes or so, the aircon would automatically switch back to fresh air mode. So it's important that you keep your city clean if you drive a W124. Now the best way to drive around in a W124 is to make a good friend of yours by one, just like I did. That way you can enjoy the car without having to worry about things breaking down all the time. Now despite these cars looking like they can last half a century or so, things do break on these. The wiring harness, for instance, is biodegradable and you end up having all sort of problems once that starts to perish. Then there are the vacuum lines for the HVAC, the headlamp leveling mechanism, the door locks, the rear head restraints. Good luck finding out if there is a leak somewhere. Now I have strict instructions about eating in his car, but in the interest of science, I am going into this McDonald's drive-thru. Now this narrow drive-thru is not exactly meant for the new E-Class they sell these days, but for this old one, I don't think there is an issue. This one fits in here nicely. Thank you. But unlike the new E-Class, after you get your burger and drink, you soon find out there is no place to keep those. There are no cup holders in this car and there is not even a glove box to save your burger for later. This was from a time when people used to eat at restaurants and not in their cars. The ride quality is quite decent and these seats feel extra springy in their place. Now we can handle the potholes and bad roads without too much complaints. The 2.2 litre inline 4-cylinder fuel injected petrol engine develops 150 horsepower and 210 Nm. Now it can do 0 to 100 in about 11 seconds, which is still reasonably fast by modern standards. Now it's a very good cruiser. Out on an open road, you won't have too much to complain about. It's way better than the diesels in that aspect. However, in the city, the steering feels heavy, the throttle pedal is heavy, these gear shifts take a lot of effort, the clutch is heavy, and it's not the easiest car to park around. Now don't think this is because this particular car is a naked example. It's not. It's the best example I have driven of the W124. And anything less perfect than this would be even worse. It's an indication of how much we have all been ruined by modern cars with their feather-like steering, soft touch controls and easy gear shifts. There is no touchscreen wizardry going on here, just a couple of analog dials and some wood on the dash. It can't match the refinement or ride quality or handling of modern cars. A sensible person would never get the idea of owning one. But to drive around in something so elegant and timeless, we can all live with some minor shortcomings, can't we? Truth is, despite being a quarter of a century old, this is one car where you have to sacrifice the least. It is as modern as any classic ever gets. There is so much old world charm, so much German quality and engineering, you soon forget what it lacks and you start reveling in what it has. Get one now because something inside you always tells you to.